Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hello everyone, my name is Muhammad Saleh Al-Schneber. In this presentation I'm going to talk about types of database models. First of all, the objectives of this presentation. In this presentation I want to explain what is database, what is database management system, types of database models, pros and cons for each model. Definition of database, database management system, and database model. First, what is database? Database is a shared collection of logically related data and a description of this data, designed to meet the information needs of an organization. Second, database management system. Database management system is a software system that enables users to define, create, maintain, and control access to the database. Third, database model. Database model shows the logical structure of a database, including the relationships that determine how data can be stored and accessed. Individual database models are designed based on the rules and concepts of whichever border data model the designer adopts. Most data models can be represented by a combining database diagram. Types of database models. Database models have too many types. And in this presentation, I'm going to talk about these 5 models: hierarchical model, network model, relational model, entity relationship data model, and object-based data models. First type of database models is the hierarchical model. And I'm going to talk about the definition of hierarchical model, tree-like structure, and what is a record. First of all, the definition of hierarchical model. The hierarchical model organizes data into a tree-like structure, where each record has a single parent or root. Sibling records are stored in a particular order. That order is used as the physical order for storing the database. The hierarchical model is good for describing many real-world relationships. Second is the tree-like structure. What is tree-like structure? A tree data structure can be defined as a collection of nodes, starting at a root node, where each node is a data structure consisting of a value together with a list of references the nodes, with the constraints that no reference is duplicated and none points to the root. Finally, what is a record? A record is a collection of fields with each field containing only one value. The types of a record defines which fields the record contains. And this diagram is an example of tree-like structure. Also, the hierarchical database models is useful for a certain type of data storage, but it is not extremely versatile. Its limitations mean that it is confined to some very specific uses. Finally, the pros and cons of the hierarchical model. The hierarchical model have many advantages and disadvantages. First, the advantages of the hierarchical model. It is conceptual simplicity, database security, and we know that the security is the major part of any database. Then data independence, database integrity, and finally efficiency. The disadvantages of the hierarchical model: that is complex to implement, difficult to manage, lacks structural independence, complex applications, programming and use, implementation, limitations, and finally, lack of standards. Now, I'm going to talk about the second type of database models, which is network model. In this slide, I'm going to talk about definition of network model and why the network model was created. First of all, the definition of network model. The network model builds on the hierarchical model by allowing many-to-many relationships between linked records, implying multiple parent records based on mathematical set theory. The model is constructed with sets of related records. Each set consists of one owner or parent record and one or more member or child records. A record can be a member or child in multiple sets, allowing this model to convey complex relationships. Why network model was created? Because network model can represent complex data relationships more effectively and improve database performance. Finally, the pros and cons of the network model. The network model have many advantages and disadvantages. The advantages of the network model, that is conceptual simplicity, handles more relationship types, data access flexibility, promotes database integrity, and data independence. The disadvantages of the network model, that is difficult for the first-time users, system complexity, and lack of structural independence. The third type is the relational model. And in this slide, I'm going to talk about the definition of the relational model and the benefit of table. The relational model is the most common model. The relational model sorts data into tables, also known as relations, each of which consists of columns and rows. Each column lists an attribute of the entity in question, such as price, zip code, or birth date. Together, the attributes in a relation are called a domain. Attribute or combination of attributes is chosen as a primary key that can be referred to in other tables when it's called a foreign key. The benefit of tables communicate and share information, which facilitates data search ability, organization, and reporting. Finally, the advantages and the disadvantages of the relational model. The advantages of the relational model is that structural independence, improved conceptual simplicity, easier database design, implementation, management, and use, new technology performance, power, and flexibility with multiple data requirement capabilities, data security and strong privacy, powerful database management system. The disadvantages of the relational model, that's substantial hardware and system software overhead, can facilitate poor design and implementation. And now I'm going to talk about the fourth type, the database models, which called the entity relationship data model. This model captures the relationships between real-world entities, much like the network model. But it isn't as directly tied to the physical structure of the database. Instead, this model used for designing a database conceptually. In this ER model structure shows a one-to-many relationship and a many-to-many relationship and one-to-one relationship. In the one-to-many relationship, a painter can paint many paintings. Each painting is painted by one painter. In the many-to-many relationship, An employee can learn many skills. Each skill can be learned by many employees. A one-to-one relationship. An employee manages one store. Each store is managed by one employee. And now, the pros and cons for the ER model. The advantages of the ER model, that is exponential conceptual simplicity, visual representation, effective communication tool, integrated with the relational data model. The disadvantages of the ER model, that is limited constraint representation, limited relationship representation, no data manipulation language, loss of information content. And now with the final type of database models, which is object-based data models. This model divided into two parts, which is object-oriented and object-relational. The object-oriented model. In this slide, I'm going to talk about the definition of object-oriented model and what is multimedia database and what is hypertext database. The definition of object-oriented model. This model defines a database as a collection of objects or reusable software elements with associated features and methods. There are several kinds of object-oriented database. First, the multimedia database incorporates media such as images that could not be stored in a relational database. The hypertext database allows any object to link to any other object. It's useful for organizing a lot of data, but it's not ideal for numerical analysis. Pros and cons for the object-oriented. The advantages of the object-oriented add semantic content. Visual presentation includes semantic content. Database integrity, both structural and data independence. The disadvantages: complex navigational data access, steep learning curve, high system overhead, slows transactions, lack of market penetration. And now with the object relational data model, the new extended version of relational database technology called Object Relational Database Management System. What is Object Relational Data Model? This hybrid database model combines the simplicity of the relational model with some of the advanced features of the object-oriented database model. This model allows designers to incorporate objects into the familiar table structure. And now with the pros and cons of the object relational model. The advantages of the object relational model is large storage capacity, access speed, manipulation power of object database. The disadvantages: the architecture of object relational model is not appropriate for high-speed web applications. Object relational model are set to conquer the database market. In conclusion, I'm going to focus about the main parts of this presentation, which is database and database model and types of database models. Database, as I said before, shared collection of logically related data and a description of this data, designed to meet the information needs of an organization. Database model shows the logical structure of a database. The types of database models are the hierarchical model, network model, relational model, ER model, object-based data models. Thank you for listening, and I hope it was a good presentation.